And like I say, I have a very, I do many things and I have many hats as the common thing. So on Tuesday afternoons, I so look forward to this segment because you know what, it takes me away to somewhere else and I'm totally focused.
Alhamdulillah.
And also, I think it just calms me down and it's my de-stress. They say you need that moment and go to your happy place.
Mm-hmm.
When you come on, or Kashifa comes on, and you take us to a beautiful time in a most glorious place with glorious mentors and motivators, and emulators. Really, it re-energizes me to face the rest of the week. So I thank you for your time and the effort you go into research. And Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim week. Let's begin.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're continuing with Zaynab bint Jahsh, part 2, that is wife of Rasulullah Sallallahu Zaynab bint Jahsh radiallahu anha. So last week, we spoke about her marriage to Zayd radiallahu anhu. And that initially, when Nabi Sallallahu had sent this marriage proposal, there were reasons behind this. And obviously, Nabi Sallallahu always did things with Allah inspiring him. He did not do things out of his own. This marriage was in order to end the social differences in his own family first, because Zayd was, from his social standing, was that he was a freed slave and adopted son of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then afterwards, the wisdom of this marriage initially, if you had just read it through history and not known the story before, seems unclear, or it's difficult to get your head around it in the beginning. But later on, we see the wisdom of Allah in this. And then Allah tells, for those of you who missed it, we're just doing a quick recap. Then Allah says that Zayd radiallahu anhu, it was also the wisdom of Allah that this had happened, that Zayd radiallahu anhu was not getting along with Zaynab radiallahu anha. They were not along, Ibn Kathir says, not even a year, or maybe a year or more, and then disputes arose from them. And there was no outside interference. Zayd radiallahu anhu willingly divorced her, and she was happy with that decree as well. And even when he went to Nabi Sallallahu to complain, Rasulullah Sallallahu said, keep your wife. He forbade him to just leave initially. But then the order of Allah came down, and that is when the nikah between Nabi Sallallahu and Zaynab radiallahu anha took place. So that is just going over a quick recap, and inshallah after this we will go through it again and discuss with Sister Maryam. I just want to go quickly through her character, and we stopped last at the walima. We said she had quite a good walima of all the other wives, and it was an account. We said also of Zaynab bin Jahsh that the verses of hijab were revealed on the day of the walima. So it is stated from Bukhari that Anas bin Malik narrated that when Nabi Sallallahu had married Zaynab anha, she was with him in the house, and he prepared a meal and invited the people to partake of the meal. And when they had finished, they sat down and engaged in conversation. And Rasulullah Sallallahu left and returned several times while the people continued with their conversations. And then Allah had revealed the ayah, "O you who believe, enter not the Prophet's houses unless permission is granted to you for a meal, and then not so early as to wait for its preparation. But when you are invited, enter. And when you have taken your meal, disperse without sitting for a talk. Verily, such behavior annoys the Prophet of Allah. And he is shy of asking you to go, but Allah is not shy of telling you the truth. And when you ask his wives for anything you want, ask from behind a screen that is purer for your hearts and of their hearts. And it is not right for you that you should annoy Allah's messenger, nor that you should ever marry his wives after his death. Verily, with Allah, that shall be an enormity." And this is from our noble Quran. These verses were revealed. And so when these verses, which we call the verses of hijab, were revealed, a veil was erected and the people stood to leave. So now it became clear, not just that these were verses of hijab, but also that the Ummahatul Mu'mineen could never marry again after Nabi Sallallahu. Who were they going to marry? Who was that great in comparison to Nabi Sallallahu? Nobody. So these two commands were revealed in the ayah of the same surah. So we spoke about earlier in Hafsa radhiyallahu anha. I'm just recapping for those who may have missed it, that Nabi Sallallahu enjoyed time of spending time with Zaynab radhiyallahu anha as well. And when he was with her, they would take turns. So after Asr, Nabi Sallallahu would visit the different apartments and inquire about the well-being of the ladies of the household, and spend time with them. And they found, especially Aisha and Hafsa radhiyallahu anha, that he would spend a little bit more time with Zaynab bint Jahsh. And so they then hatched this plan that Aisha, Sauda, and Hafsa, that they would all tell Nabi Sallallahu the same thing, that he had a peculiar smell in his mouth from the maghafir plant. And they would say, you go to, if Nabi Sallallahu comes to you, you say the same thing. And similarly, when he got to Aisha, she said, that there's something that is smelling. And he said, no, I haven't been anywhere. I was just at Zaynab's. And he said, I only had honey. And so then afterwards, Nabi Sallallahu said, no, he's not going to have honey. Obviously, it wasn't that. They just didn't want him to spend time there. So there was that healthy jealousy also. So since he was very concerned, of his personal hygiene, and he didn't want to also offend anybody, he said that he would stop eating the honey. But then Allah revealed ayat also in the surah to tell them, why do you make something halal that is haram? There are other narrations also that say, and we've been through this with Hafsa, so I don't want to go into this. If you want to know the Asbab al-Nuzul or the ayat, why it was revealed, then you can take a listen on SoundCloud to the podcast of Hafsa radhiyallahu anha. Her character, Zaynab radhiyallahu anha's character, Aisha radhiyallahu anha says about her that she worked with her own hands, and whatever she earned from there, she spent on charity. She was a woman of taqwa. She was a straightforward woman. She practiced abstinence. All her actions were always aimed at pleasing Allah. There were times that she could lose her temper, which is natural, but she was quick to repent and ask for forgiveness. At the end of the day, she was very pure of heart, and she never begrudged anyone or carried any resentment. And that's the most important thing, a lesson that we learn throughout the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, that they may have had jealousy, but they would never plot or plan against each other, because the Sahaba, all of them, they knew what another Muslim is to another. Not like how we live today. We don't think it's anything small to just utter something by hearsay. We don't think about the impact that it would have, or we think about ourselves and think how we can move forward, and we don't think of those that we clamp on. So this is not the case with the wives of Rasulullah. Regarding the ifk, and the ifk was the slander of Aisha radhiyallahu anha, and why we mention this is because Zaynab radhiyallahu anha's sister was involved in this. Hamna was her name. So when Aisha radhiyallahu anha was wrongfully accused, the whole of Medina was polluted with these taunts and filthy talk by the hypocrites. And in fact, Nabi Sallallahu was very disturbed. And Rasul asked Zaynab what her opinion was of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. And she promptly said that she didn't wish to be involved in what people were saying. She didn't want to defile and taint her ears, her eyes, her tongue with such terrible accusations. And she said, swearing by Allah, that she found Aisha radhiyallahu anha to be a very truly God-fearing person, a person who had taqwa, a woman of exemplary character. Zaynab radhiyallahu anha said, I find in her the most wonderful traits of integrity, sincerity, and honesty. And Aisha radhiyallahu anha narrated that Zaynab radhiyallahu anha very easily could have taken advantage of the situation, because she's a co-wife. She could have easily just passed a derogatory comment or remark about her, because, after all, they're rivals. But Aisha radiallahu anha says she never ever forgot the fact that she stood by her at the worst time in her life, when almost the whole world had turned against her. But I mean, imagine if you put yourself in their shoes, and your sister was at the center of slandering, and you were a co-wife. Whose side would you take? You know. So these are all examples of what goes on in life, and examples for us, you know. So, although it is a known fact that all the Azwaj Mutahharat, Aisha, Zaynab, they were always vying and competing for the love of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yet they always praised each other with regards to their noble qualities. You know, there's a saying that the praise of the competitor is the highest praise. And so whenever Aisha radiallahu anha remembered Zaynab radiallahu anha, she would invoke Allah's mercy on her, and especially mention her for the stance that she took when Aisha radiallahu anha was being slandered. She says, Hamana was involved in spreading the rumor. As for her sister Zaynab, her taqwa prevented her from saying anything. Zaynab said, by Allah, I find nothing in her, meaning Aisha, but goodness. So we see that Zaynab radiallahu anha was a truthful person here. She did not take advantage of Aisha radiallahu anha's misfortune at the time. Regarding her generosity, Aisha radiallahu anha said, in terms of values and position, Zaynab was her equal. She said she had never seen any other person who was so eager to get close to Allah or to gain nearness to Allah, as she was more charitable than most. And her generous behavior with relatives was impeccable. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would frequently praise her from amongst his wives for her generosity and her liberal spending in the path of Allah. It is narrated in Muslims from Aisha radiallahu anha that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the one who has the longest arms amongst you will be the first to meet me in Jannah. And all the ladies took the statement literally and started measuring their arms. Zaynab radiallahu anha was not as tall as the other wives. Naturally, her arms were shorter. But it was upon the death of Zaynab radiallahu anha that they realized what this meant, meaning that the longest arms is the one who is the most generous. So this was an implicit prophecy in the statement, which became clear when Zaynab radiallahu anha passed away, that she would meet him in Jannah before the others, because she was the first of the wives to pass away after the demise of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was a habit of Umar radiallahu anhu in his time of rule to give the Ummahatul Mu'mineen annually a stipend. And Zaynab bint Jahsh's annual grant was 12,000. And she would take once, and after that she would just say, oh Allah, do not let this money be with me next year, because this is a trial. And she would then distribute all this among her kith and her kin and the needy. And when Umar radiallahu anhu heard of this, he said, this is a blessed woman. He then sent greetings to her and a message of the news regarding what you have done has reached me. And because he was Khalif at the time, he then sent her 1,000 dirhams, and that would be sufficient for her needs. She treated the money the same way as she had done previously. Ibn Sa'd Ridwan Rahimahullah reported it on the authority of Al-Qasim bin Muhammad that on her deathbed she said, I have prepared my own shroud, so Umar is going to send a shroud for me. Give one of them in charity, and if you can, also give away my loincloth in charity, if you can do so. Ammar bin Abdurrahman al-Ansariya reported the following, that Umar anhu sent 5 cloths, Haran cloths, and each of them was incensed, and she was shrouded with that. Her sister Hamna gave in charity the shroud which Zaynab had prepared for her own burial. It is also narrated that Aisha radiallahu anha said, the praiseworthy woman, the devoted worshipper, and the refuge of the orphans and widow has now gone, meaning Zaynab radiallahu anha. Zaynab bint Jahsh, upon her death, in Muslim it is narrated that Zaynab was the only one who competed with me in the status of the eyes of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is what Aisha radiallahu anha said. I had never seen a woman of taqwa, astaqwa lisanan, more truthful in her speech, and atqa and Allah, more taqwa with Allah, more righteous in her religion, more caring for her relatives, more generous with her charity, and energizing in her efforts to come closer to Allah. Thus was the character of Zaynab radiallahu anha. She would keep a little corner in her house and used to spend a lot of time there in salah, in dhikr and dua. At times, Nabi Sallallahu would also pray there. And she had an unshakable conviction in Allah and believed strongly in asking Allah for counsel through salah and dua before taking any action. All her life's major decisions were made in this way, as we mentioned earlier with regards to the proposal of Nabi Sallallahu to her. She was a modest lady, and when she passed away, a curtain was drawn in front of her body, or cloth rather, sheet, and she was wrapped in her coffin. She passed away in 20 AH at the age of 53. Umar performed her janaza, and her close relatives Usama bin Zayd, Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Jahsh, Abdullah bin Abi Ahmed bin Jahsh, Muhammad bin Talha, they lowered her body gently into her qabr. She is buried in Al-Baqi. May Allah have mercy on her, and may Allah grant us the understanding of what the decisions that was made during her lifetime. And Allah grant us the tawfiq to bring this into our lives and implement these things, as we were speaking about last week, Sister Mariam, about not being shy on finding a suitor, a father going out and asking, is there somebody good, suitable for my daughter, or a brother doing the same? And looking also at things on the way it took place. For me, this stands out because first she was given this order, right? And this given the order by who? By Allah in Quran, marry Zayd. And against her will, because of her initial answer was she didn't want to. And then Allah said, this is the order. You have to follow the Nabi. And then she accepts and she marries. And then the marriage doesn't work. And there's no utterance of complaining. There's no, oh, why did I marry? Why you wasted my time? If I knew this wasn't going to work in the first place, why did I have to marry only to be divorced again? Because we say things that just, it comes into our hearts and we just feel we want to get it off our chest. And sometimes we say things without thinking. And she could have said these things, but she didn't. And imagine on the part of Zayd radiallahu anhu as well. This man was married, and by the order of Allah, which is obviously through Nabi Sallallahu. And then he divorces her, and he willingly did that. And then Nabi Sallallahu sent him with the proposal to Zaynab. I mean, if that had taken place in our lifetime, we would have said, oh, that's just sick, or that's just wrong, and I really ask you to put yourself in those shoes. What would you have said if Zaydullah was your brother, or if it was your brother-in-law, or what would we have said? What would we have said about our Nabi? Oh, you asked her to marry him, and now he's marrying someone else. So these are all, for me personally, these are all deep lessons that we can learn. And Allah just increase us. Now we know the story, we know the lessons. Allah help us to implement this in our lives and in our children and our progeny and the Ummah.
Summa Ameen. Summa Ameen. So many lessons when we discussed on the series, I didn't realize, I said it's going to be lessons for us to emulate in life lessons, but as we go deeper into the series, there are more and more lessons that we can take and implement in our own lives, in our situations, in what's happening in society today. As you say, we live in a country where our ideals and our values in it are dominated by the, let's say, mainstream Western thinking, and sometimes their taboos are transferred to us in a sense. As you've mentioned, a father going out, or a brother going out to seek a righteous marriage partner on behalf of his daughter is nothing taboo. Here you think, oh, the father is forward or the father is desperate, because that would come to your mind if a father sees an eligible suitor or the family of an eligible suitor and then offers his daughter's hand in marriage because he knows this is a family that is going to nurture my my daughter. This is the family in which she can grow and improve herself as a person in terms of a deen. And the father has this foresight. And today we'd look at it. I mean, it's an exemplary way. It's the way of the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions that they used to do this. But in today's time, like I say, we influence someone now thinking that would be taken as desperation or something wrong with his daughter. He needs to get her married urgently. Maybe she's wayward or something like that. That the father is now intervening, and that would be the popular mindset that we would all assume. If I had to come in now, ask you, Sauda, you have a son and a family, and I have my daughter here who's marriageable age, and I said, you don't know, but the popular talk was, I'll be a desperate mother, or my daughter is wayward. That's why I need to get her married and settle down. But no, that's exemplary, because you're looking after not only for your daughter, but about her future, about the progeny, that they're going to be steadfast on deen. So these are many lessons that are many so-called taboos in society. You are debunking it. And not only this, and for me, what's telling and poignant is that these injunctions did not even just come based on life situation, but this was directed from Qur'ans. So from the Quran. So even in time of Aisha radiallahu anha, who spoke for her, it came directly from the Quran that she was found to be innocent. In terms of, as you've explained now, for Zaynab bin Jahsh, her marriage, her divorce, her marriage to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, all was done. Her nikah was a divine nikah. Was a divine nikah, as you had told us last week. So for me, there's so many lessons that are going to guide me in terms of and change my way of thinking in terms of what is acceptable and what is taboo and what is not taboo. And also another thing is, while these are the most virtuous females around, they were still human, so they were not angels. They erred. And also what made our beloved mothers human for me, and you humanize them based on the incidents you said about the honey, because that happens, plotting and planning and scheming, and that it's rife today. And you showed us that, you know what, this was amongst our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's wives. Yes, they lived together, but they were human. So there was that aspect of jealousy, and even the aspect of plotting. To say, yes, we're laughing now, but I mean, we see this all the time, but it's happening. But then after that, the lesson came about, and also the Quranic injunction about not making things that are permissible, jahiz, halal, pure, tayyib, and then making that haram, because when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I'll never have this again based on this incident. So all these are life lessons for us to say, yes, we have emotions. And really, for me, they make me old here, the radio station, because I'm one of the seniors. But senior as I may be, it's changing how I think, especially in terms of life, in terms of when your children are older, in terms of when you're getting them married, in terms of also, if Allah forbid, you might find that one of your children have become widowed or divorced. Allah save us from such circumstances. But if it does happen, there's nothing wrong if then you look for a suitable partner again for your child, because
it
happened.
Mean that life has to end.
Exactly. And also the stigma, it's taking away that stigma around. Yes, you've mentioned, and you as learned Islamic scholar, alima, guide, will tell us divorce is frowned upon by Allah Ta'ala, but concession is made, because in some cases it's toxic it's toxic to love in that marriage, and in some cases you're just not compatible, and you have to move on. And that's why I said, I know, and sometimes we say we made istikhara, yet it went wrong, because I've come to realize now that istikhara was that marriage or that experience was good for you for that time, and the time has expired. And also for that time it was good for you, and once the time is expired, that's no longer beneficial to you, and that is why it has to end.
In the verses that first Zaynab was proposed to, Zayd proposed to her, and she married him, and then divorced. And Allah showing all this is what happens in life. There's your proof right there. You get married, you get divorced, at the time it was the right thing. Yes, at the time it was the right thing. Who said it was the right thing? Allah said it was the right thing. You know. So yeah, at the time you make istikhara, it's correct, and Allah willed something else. But that's why also you see in lives of Sahaba, they never ever held on to anything. There was no grudges. They moved on. Okay, this happened. I have nothing bad, no
malice in my heart. Yes,
I move on.
And for this is telling. So I thank you and Kashifa for bringing these lessons alive, because I'm learning. I'm somebody who thought, I knew things, and I was quite well versed also in Islamic history, in fiqh, in aqaid, and that. But we learn all the time, and we thank you for your extensive research in teaching others. And every time, my take back for me, and I'm sure for the listeners, would be that it reaffirms us in the belief that Islam is a perfect way of life, the most practical, perfect. Not to say that we don't, but it's good just as a reminder.
It covers. True.
Exactly. So looking forward to next week's edition, inshallah. Until then, may you be under the protection and the mercy of the Almighty. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're going to go for a short break, and thereafter my producer Duru is going to take the presenter seat, and she will be conducting the interview with Sherry Brainerd, because this is something Duru felt passionate about. In speaking to Sherry when we're trying to secure for an interview, Duru was so touched in terms of Sherry Brainerd's journey against all odds, and she being an international ambassador for people or individuals who live with the Down syndrome, the condition of Down syndrome. So let's go for a break, and then Dudu will be in the hot seat with Sherry Brainerd.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
Are you willing to do your part to help those in need? Water is a human right and is essential to all life. We take it for granted every single day, but many people living in Africa do not have access to clean water. Africa Muslims Agency is building water wells to assist those in need. One water well costs 12,000 Rand and benefits hundreds of people. A gift of water is a gift of life. What will your donation be, and how many lives will you change? Call Africa Muslims Agency on 011 834 8685 or donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za.
Dad, well, I've been chatting with an investment broker today, and...
Broker? Did the broker tell you that our economy is a mess? There's bushfires in Australia, America wanted World War III, and now the coronavirus is traveling around the world.
Well, I also thought about purchasing some crypto.
Crypto? What's that, like another pyramid scheme? I don't trust what I can't see.
There's an apartment in Belita.
So only a family will be asking to stay there for free. And what if the government takes it away, eh?
Dad, I don't think it works like that.
I'll tell you what works. Gold. At your age, I invested in gold coins and it paid for your university fees and your wedding. No contracts, no agreements. Your investment is in your hands and you own it. With a 70% growth in only 5 years, do you still doubt gold investment? Contact RJ Coin today, 031 202 4701, or visit them at 151 Stephen Lamini Road in Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show. So as we all know, for most, hopefully everybody knows, is that October is dedicated to Down syndrome awareness. And on this show, I'm joined by a special guest called Sherry Brainerd. Now, Sherry Brainerd is an extraordinary person, and I'm very much excited to speak to her because she's an international ambassador for people with Down syndrome. She is recognized as the first person in the world to obtain a tertiary qualification